Good evening. Welcome to KTJO Ottawa The Rage 88.9 FM. Welcome to the most important show on the radio right now. This is It Matters, the weekly show that takes a look at the world, that holds a mirror up to society, and then shares that information with you to make us all better people. Tonight we're going to be talking about something that actually can have a profound effect on how we treat others and how we are treated in return. Now, sit back and let's see what really matters today in our world. We have all been in frustrating situations, right? Especially around the holidays. If you catch my drift, that's right. I'm talking about how sometimes we let those frustrations get the better of us. Imagine that you're in a retail store and you're trying to return something that you bought. You're asked for your receipt, which of course you left at home. Once the receipt is located by the helpful people behind the counter, you're told that, unfortunately, because of the date you purchased the item, you're unable to return it because it's outside the store's very clearly marked return policy. Do you accept it gracefully, or do you immediately become defensive and demand to complete your return? Are these policies to blame? Is the store to blame? What about the person on the other side of the counter? Well, tonight, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about customer service in the retail industry. What makes it good, how to be a good customer, how to accept graciously things that are out of your control. In the studio tonight, I have some guests to help us wade through this topic. Now, both of these are either currently working in the customer service industry or have in the past. Both of them have worked in the past for a big box retail store. We're not going to mention that retail store because no one wants to get sued. So I'll just have them introduce themselves. We'll start with you.
My name is Francisco, and I've worked in the customer service position for about, I want to say, 3.5, 4 years. So been there, done that, seen it all.
And
my name is Jeremy. I spent about 2.5 years working in customer service. Have since moved on from that position and am now following a career in graphic design.
Awesome. And full disclosure for everyone listening, I actually know these two guys. I've actually worked with them at the same retailer, so I don't want you to think there's any shenanigans going on around. Up front, I know both of these guys. And thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Not a problem.
All right. So let's start off here. In your mind, what makes good customer service?
Well, I mean, it's all about when you have a problem, I want to help you find a solution. Like, that's my entire job in a nutshell. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to make this harder than it seems. I don't want to have to go get my manager because that entails me having to walk such a long distance. And let's be honest, we all want to be lazy at work. Like that's the get-go. But creating more issues and having to create more work for myself is not my highest priority. Like, honestly, I do not get paid enough to make more work for myself. I already have enough problems as it is.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, what's customer service mean to you?
See, I feel like it's almost a tough one. I think good customer service, it requires a stiff upper lip, because you do run into a lot of issues along the way with, customers. So I think it takes you need to have a hard backbone. You need to keep your head on straight. You need to be friendly overall, because if somebody starts getting a little riled and then you start to get frustrated and start to get a little riled, that's just going to cause more problems. If you keep your head on straight, you're focused, and you're being chatty and you're being friendly, I think that creates a good experience for that customer in the end.
Okay, so you actually bring up an interesting point. When people get angry, how do you keep your cool? I mean, because human nature, someone gets mad at you, you can't help it. They wear that fight or flight, reflex,
right?
And something's going to happen. How do you fight against that to make sure that you still deliver the experience that the customer is expecting or that you are required to give?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you don't want to get fired, right? You need that job, right? So I think that has a lot to do with it. But just kind of looking at it from the customer's perspective, you can kind of see where they would be angry, right? And so you kind of like try to relate back to that and just kind of push it aside, you know? Like you just gotta like don't deal with it with them. Just maybe deal with it once they have left the store and you're on your own.
Yeah.
I always try to think about, like, if I was in their shoes, is this something that I should be legitimately mad about? Like, if it is a policy that's kind of biting you in the butt, then it's one of those things like, yeah, like I sympathize with this person. But when it's one of those things where this person's overreacting for no reason other than the fact that they're not going to get their way today, it's really, really hard to put that in a perspective of sympathy, of like, yeah, I want to help this
Right.
guy, this woman, what have you. I mean, sometimes people just get riled up over the smallest things, and it's like, there's worse things in the world,
Right. You think if only I had so little to worry about that I could let this bother me.
Yeah.
Right.
So you brought up an interesting point there as well too. Is that you say you want to help them? Is there ever a time when you just let them have their way, or I mean, can you give in and let them and actually let them win, or do you have to maintain that the saying this is a hierarchical thing, right. And unfortunately because of the way it works, I have to maintain policy. I mean, we have to make a profit. I mean, where is that line, or is it flexible?
Yeah.
Honestly, like the truth would be, so there's a company byline. You have these numbers to run through. You're kept to these standards, but it's more of the fact that the company also needs people to come and shop. I mean, I need this person to come back to the store to buy something so I can keep my job. So you have to put that in perspective too. So some of our more well-known clients, we know them, we're willing to work with them because we know that they're good for it, that they'll come back later and purchase this multi-$100 item and get the services and have it installed and what have you. But then you have that one person that you look up their history in our system, and they've bought like one CD, one pack of gum, maybe a VHS back in 1992.
Or they buy a ton of stuff and return it all.
Or that too, yeah. And that's when you're like, well, I'm not going to make any money off of you right now or ever. So for you to be a jerk right now, I have no incentive on my own business to help you. Because if I do now, this just sets a precedent in your mind,
right,
that you can just come back to the store and be a jerk whenever you feel like it.
Yes, we have responsibilities as customer service professionals, right? And we have these policies in effect, but as customer service professionals, we can make the call in the end, right? So if somebody comes in and, the sweetest old lady comes in and her piece of software is, say, 45 days out of policy, but she has been nothing but a sweetheart to me, yes, I can make that call and make that exception. But on the other hand, if, somebody else comes in and is just an absolute horrendous customer to work with, same situation, software 45 days out of policy, I'm not going to make that call because you're not being, polite to me. I'm not going to help you in the end. So it's almost like a scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type thing.
It's almost the difference between someone coming up and saying, hello, how are you? How are you? I'm doing good. What can I help you with? To throwing the product on the counter and be like, this didn't work. I want my money back. And it's like, okay. Hi, how are you? You start off in a positive note. I am more willing to help you. If you start throwing things at me, that's when I'm like,
yeah, that's not a good first impression.
Yeah. All right. So there we go. So that's tip number 1 right there, right? So if you want to be a good customer at the customer service counter, be polite. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the guy on the other
that's
side of the
golden
counter,
rule.
he's not the problem.
Right.
And I think maybe sometimes customers approach us as customer service reps as saying, you work for this company, so they immediately are hostile towards them.
Right.
And so I think that maybe sometimes we have that to overcome first. Say,
Sure.
hey, I understand, empathy, I guess, would be would be a good thing if we put ourselves in their shoes and.
Yeah, I always imagine every interaction is like, if this was me on the opposite side of the counter, what would I need from that person to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I shop. I'm a consumer. I buy more things than I should. And I've dealt with customer service on the customer side. And now I know, like, being mean does not get you anywhere in the beginning. Now, I've had instances, especially with, like, and we've all had this situation, like cable companies, where, you know, they say, oh, it's going to be $50 a month, and they tack on all these hidden fees and all that. And I call them up, and I'm like, what is going on? You know, what is all this? And then, oh, we'll fix it. And then it happens again the next month. Then I'm like, we've already had this conversation. Come on, cut me some slack here. Was patient the first time. This is the second time this has happened. But it seems like an everyday thing on my end when I work, that first interaction, boom, like this is the end of the world as this person knows it. And I need to get the bomb shelter out and, you know, duck and cover. It's like, honestly, the store that I work at does not sell anything life-saving or life-needing.
Okay.
Like it is a very general store. There's nothing. I don't sell oxygen tanks for your grandmother. I don't sell water for babies. Like, this is a very general store. So there's nothing here that of crisis need. So when you say that this thing ruined Christmas, it didn't. It didn't.
It's funny.
It was probably your attitude at Christmas.
It's funny you mentioned that. So it's a good segue to what I want to talk about next. If I were to ask you, what company do you think in the United States has the cleanest and best reputation for having stellar customer service? What would you think it would be?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Honestly, like, I honestly don't know. Everything I've heard, I mean, it's been bad about every customer service, but I don't know whether to put that as it's actually bad, or is that because the only opinions out there that are the loudest are the bad ones. I mean, in my experience, I mean, I've worked with car dealerships, been great. Ordering stuff online from a couple big websites, I've had no problems doing returns, exchanges, ever.
To me, there's one company that sticks out because, and whether or not it's true or not, but the perception is that they have the best customer service. They have customer service training, and that's Disney. That's what I'm thinking about because you know, I mean, they thrive. It's what the happiest place on earth. Whatever.
Right.
So there's actually, and I want to get your guys' take on this. I actually used to work for Disney, and I went through their customer service training program, or they call it guest relations. First of all, it's brutal. It's basically a month worth of classes before you're even allowed to talk to a customer. What they teach you, the strategy they teach you for dealing with customers who are angry is the first thing you do is you make it worse. Refuse to help. Try to find bits and nuggets of information that they give you that you can turn on it to make the situation worse. Then when you fix it, you become a hero.
That's a very interesting take on that. I can't say I've heard anything quite like that before.
Now, I mean, I don't know if they still do that, but this was in the mid-90s when I went through this training, but that's what they taught us. And I worked over the phone for them, so people would call up either from the resorts or from orders or whatever with problems. You know what? I mean, it sounds like you have a problem here, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. I can't get Mickey to your room tonight. You know, so I'm sorry. You've ruined our birthday or whatever.
We can only get Donald Duck.
He's
the only one available.
And no one wants Donald Duck.
He doesn't wear pants.
So yeah, it's a very interesting take. But I mean, psychologically, I'm sure they had someone research this, and that's the best way to appease people because they end up being happier with less.
Right.
You know what I'll do? I will make sure that Mickey visits your room while you guys at the park, and he'll leave 4 extra mints on your pillow. You'll do that for us? Or they give you, here's a voucher for $50 for one of the restaurants at the park. Okay, what does that cost them? 80 cents?
Right.
But yet, 50. Well, you know what? I'm so sorry. I got upset. So yeah, it's a really interesting approach to to customer service that Disney has. Make it worse first.
That's what I definitely try to avoid.
Oh, I
'Cause
think,
they're coming in pretty upset for the most part already.
and it might be a little harder. I mean, face to face. Like, I mean, I was
Yeah.
over the phone, and there's a certain nice anonymity.
Yeah.
Face to face. Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be more difficult. Although I have to admit, there are some customers that I kind of take pleasure in doing that with. not saying who. Francisco, a while ago, you talked about store policies and whatnot, and we know this, with the economy being pretty poor for the past few years, and a lot of companies' bottom lines shrinking, even some of the black turning into red. There have been a pretty solid string of events where companies are tightening those budgets. They're shortening return periods. They're adjusting how things are processed in the favor of the company and taking that away from the customer. How do you address those changes with the customer? Because they're going to come in and they're going to be used to the old system, and now because of how the economy is, changes have had to be made, and they don't understand. To them, they're being penalized, and yet
The funny thing you say that, but our policies are clearly printed in English and in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking countrymen here in the United States that outlines in plain English, not in legalese, not the hitherto forth therewith party
Part of the
of
first
you. It says, this is the store policy for our items. This is what you have to work with. And they say, well, a lot of times I didn't know that. I pretty much read everything I've ever been handed to, leases, receipts, just, because
iTunes agreements.
yeah, except that is so long. But everyone should read that because there's some funny things. You can't get iTunes music or the iTunes program in Iran or North Korea. It's illegal because of sanctions.
Huh.
So you can't get iTunes there. Just FYI for everyone. So don't go to those countries with iTunes. You just broke the law.
Just don't go to those countries and it'll be fine.
But it's written there in English, plain as day. And I've had people say, well, I didn't read that, or, I couldn't be bothered to read that. My response to that in my head, because obviously I can't say this to them, is like, do you read anything that's handed to you? Like, what? Just, I don't understand that concept of ignorance. It's like ignorance gives me justice because I didn't know, therefore you have to suffer.
I don't know if I would say ignorance per se. After now being out of customer service for going on 3 years now, it has made me a little more aware of certain policies and stuff. But coming from like my design side, I know that certain stores have their policies on huge, ginormous signs right near the front door. You can't miss it. And on the back of the receipts. But really, are most people going to look at that? Like, do you ever really look at the back of the receipt? When you go into a store, do you ever look at those signs? You see that it's filled with words, and you immediately are thinking to yourself, I don't even care what that thing says. I'm just here to buy the latest Maroon 5 CD, or get a carton of milk or something. And I think that it's very hard to change policies and inform people, because most of the time, like, what is the percentage of these people that are using these policies, right? So a 30-day return policy, I've maybe used it maybe half a dozen times in my entire life that I've actually taken advantage of it, because most of the things that I buy, I don't need to return it. So I'm not making myself aware of these policies at the end of the day, because I don't need to. I don't really care. So I don't know if it's like an ignorance thing. Maybe it is a bit of ignorance, just because maybe you should prepare yourself. But really, when you go to the store and you try to buy something, you expect it to work. You never think you're going to need to use, something like a return policy.
But I mean, if it doesn't work, that's a different thing. I mean, right? That'd be a warranty. I mean, it's the people who are like, oh, I bought this, but I don't like it, or oh, you know what? I watched this movie; it's really bad. I want to bring it back. You know, what I mean, it's not like Blockbuster.
That's true. Warranty issues, though. I mean, that goes back to kind of like the iTunes agreements and stuff. All that stuff is in the fine print, and I would say 3% of Americans, or actually pretty much anybody around the world, reads that. Nobody really thinks about that stuff. I know we all have because it's part of it was part of our jobs,
right?
But I don't know. And then things like CDs, movies, things that can't be returned and can only be
prepaid
exchanged.
Cards.
Yeah,
those are always fun to return.
Yeah.
I didn't use this. Well, I can't
prove it.
Yeah, you just for some reason you just can't get it through your head that you can't. You can't do that. Like once it's purchased, it's yours.
Right.
People just, when they want, I guess working in customer services made me realize things. So I've taken more into consideration more things when I buy things, right? Like, I buy a CD. I know that I'm aware of it, that I can only exchange it for the same thing. But what makes you think that, what goes through the mindset of a customer when they buy something and like a CD, and they're like, oh man, CD was terrible, I'm going to go take it back. Like, what makes them think that they can do something like that?
Well, what bothers me, I don't know, the policy of returning open items like that, has that been like that for, before even, when I started becoming a consumer and buying my own things? I've always, since I was a teenager and bought my own stuff, known that if I open something, the return policy gets narrowed down.
Right.
And it just seems like a lot of people are just blown away at the fact that sometimes if you open something, I have no ability to return it, and they just seem flabbergasted. And a lot of times when I explain it, it's like, well, I can't resell this.
Sure. You're right. It's a relatively new thing. My understanding is that back in the 80s and 90s, when United States consumerism, I mean, that's what it is, started to peak. We had the huge, we just came out of recession. The economy was, starting to go well. And what happened was people were buying things, and it started with the Walmarts and the Targets. They were like, oh, you know what, just bring anything back. I mean, for a long time, Walmart and Target, you didn't have to have a receipt. You could bring it back even if they didn't carry the item. And they look up and they give you a refund for it.
Clothing
Right.
Superstores still do that.
Yeah.
So, I think other retailers followed suit as best they could, and if they have to stay competitive, so they if everyone else is going to return stuff, but I remember buying things and being like, oh, the only reason you can take it back is if it doesn't work, or if
then you get
it's
another
bad.
one.
Right.
You get another one. It's not, getting it back for a refund. I mean, I suppose probably, but that was rare because people, when they went and bought something, they did due diligence to find out what they needed, what they wanted, what was going to work for them, and then they got it. They didn't go, oh, you know what? I've got a party this weekend.
Yeah,
I'm gonna buy an 80-inch TV for the Super Bowl. I'm gonna return it the next week. That didn't even start to occur to people until the huge revolving door policies.
Yeah.
I mean,
came
and
in the
even
80s and
stores
90s.
had restocking fees. And I remember when
That's
I
right.
started.
Yeah, that's right.
And
That's right.
people always complain when I don't return something or have to return to a store credit. It's like, it could be worse. I could be docking 20% off what you get back just cause. But they took that away because people didn't like it. It's like, it can be worse. It can be that again if you want. So, I mean, all it takes is for one person in the company to do a small report on, we should do restocking fees. And boom, psh, I'm starting to collect restocking fees again. Awesome. Because that always went over so well.
Yeah, I think customer service is an ever-changing, ever-evolving, I guess,
I think
industry.
in Kansas we have to say changing.
Oh.
Zing.
Yeah, it's ever changing. Like things, policies change all the time. I remember, policies every couple of, it felt like weeks, something was changing, something was new, or they're taking something away. It's very hard. You can't please everybody. Somebody is always going to be upset. So I think it almost presents a question. Do you do research into it, and do you find out like what you could do best to make people happy, or do you just stop it where it is and say like a return policy, 30-day return policy, that's it. Anything outside of it, you're not going to do it. Like when you, I don't know, it's a tough call when you try to do something.
It always depends on the person.
Yeah, again.
It's more of obey the spirit of the policy instead of the word of the policy.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we remember your face. If you're a person that constantly comes back and tries to wiggle your way through the system, we remember that.
Yeah, don't think we don't know you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny you mention that because there's a new thing that a lot of retailers are doing now, where when you do a return, they're tracking those, and you can get turned down.
Oh yeah.
I know the store we work at. I had a guy last week that he came in and tried to return. So I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. This is the last return you can make for 90 days. Sorry. He's like, what? And his wife got all mad, and I think it might have caused him to get a divorce because he looked over and he goes, "We're through." So it was.
Whoa.
It was pretty intense, and they were returning. It was like a box set. It was worth $50. I mean, it was nothing, but it was it was a big deal. But literally, I mean, you don't get turned down for stuff like that unless it's a serial problem,
Right.
Yeah, like the people that do get turned down in that system, we already know your face. If we know your face, it's not because we're customer service. That means we're either returning something or editing an order. We're not selling things. So that means you're constantly having issues with whatever you're buying. So if the system turns you down, that's kind of a hint.
Yeah.
Like, bad. But
it's rare though. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time.
it doesn't happen all the time. You have to return a lot of stuff. I mean, I've seen people return a lot of stuff and never, ever, ever get flagged. And I've seen people return like 2 things. Those 2 things were multi-$1,000 items. And now my company's like, yeah, no.
And I think a lot of times people don't realize when you bring something back and return it, that costs the company money because
Right.
they have to sell that now at a discount. They have to sell it as or send it back to the manufacturer.
Some items can't be.
And we paid full price for that item.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
We bought that from the vendor at full price, and now we have to take a hit because you didn't like the remote on it.
Awesome. So we've hit halfway here. So it's time for us to take a short break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. That's right, just 2 more minutes, and we'll be back with more It Matters.
Imagine me, a dog, moving in with a human. I didn't know how it would work. Turns out, my human's pretty entertaining. For instance, every time I give my human his ball, he throws it as far as he can. And I'm like, dude, that's your ball. So I go get it. But he just throws it. Again. I gotta say, though, the more he does it, the funnier it is. I love my human.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
I see a great need in my community.
So Richard Washington set out to meet that need by working with youth in the juvenile justice system, joining thousands of other volunteers. If you're 55 and older, you can use the skills that help you through a lifetime of learning, giving, teaching, and working. Go to getinvolved.gov or call 1-800-424-8867 to find out how you can volunteer, impact your community, and make our country stronger.
Retired people have a lot to offer because we have life experience.
What are you going to do with your lifetime of experience? Go to getinvolved.gov today or call 1-800-424-8867. We have so much to offer, and our nation needs us. Make a difference for generations. This message is brought to you by the Corporation for National and Community Service.
Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to It Matters on KTJO FM, Ottawa The Rage, 88.9. We are here in the studio today talking about customer service and how to be a good customer. I'm here with Jeremy and Francisco, who I've worked with in the past in the customer service industry. So we've been talking about store policies and how to address those with customers. We've been talking about different ways to approach customers. I mean, what are some of the most outrageous things that customers say? I mean, I can think of, do you know how much I spend? You know what I mean?
Oh, that's
That's a good one.
You want to automatically get on our bad side. You say that. Outrageous things?
Outrageous.
Man, I've had some bad ones. I've had some people tell me to go F myself.
Yeah. Stick things in places that aren't so comfortable.
Wait, Frank, you had one the other day.
Oh, yeah, that one from a while back. So the story is, this woman comes in, and I forget what the product was. Maybe it was a video game of some sort, something like that. It was unopened, but it was like 3 or 4 months outside of our policy, and the store still carried it. So I was like, you know what? In the spirit of the holidays, I'll go ahead and make an exception for you. But unfortunately, it'll have to go to store credit. And store credit is good on this company's in all their stores and also on its website. I mean, it's pretty universal. It's just you're not getting it back in cash, back on your Visa, what have you.
Yeah, it essentially works like a gift card.
Yeah, it's just a more closely locked gift card because it can't ever be changed out. And so I complete the transaction. The lady is very upset that she has to take a store credit for this game that her son didn't want. And I was like, well, it's not my problem that it took you 4 months to get it to your son. I mean, you should know kind of like what your kid's like. And I said, well, this store credit has so-and-so amount of money. It doesn't expire. It doesn't lose value, so you can sit on it. Now, in her rage, she said, I'll tell you what I'll sit on. And I realized immediately how I said it, what she took it as. And it's like, I meant sit on it as in you don't have to use it right away. But if you want to be like that, then you can be like that, ma'am. I didn't mean any offense. I apologize. But seriously, calm down. And she grabs it and leaves in a huff. And I haven't seen her since then, and I hopefully never do. But just one of those things, like, I apologized. I immediately recognized, like, if I was in her position, someone said that, what I meant was not how I should have said it. I should have said, or, you can keep it for a while or something. But at that moment, emotions were heightened. But I was the first to immediately apologize. But it's just one of those things, like, I was already doing you an exception to get you at least the spending money back. And I was telling you that you don't have to use it right away. But just one of those things, like, I'm human too. I'm a human being.
Right.
Like, people tend to forget that I make mistakes and I have feelings and I do this for 8 hours a day. So if you're not the only mean person I've had to deal with, especially if you're coming in, like, if I'm working a 10 to 5, like, if you come in at 4:45, I've had about 6 hours worth of probably other really, really, really mean people.
I actually hadn't thought about that story. I was thinking about the one with the guy that told you that someone should kill the president because he's behind the bad store policies.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah. Oh man, totally forgot about that. He blamed President Obama for our policies, and I was sitting there like, what? Like,
for your store policy?
Yeah. It was.
He's like, Obama's got to be behind this. Someone should kill that.
It was because
oh my God!
What was it? He was picking up something, and on the order, it wasn't him. It was his wife, and they hadn't put him on the order. And the store policy is only the person on the order can pick up the item
to protect against fraud.
Fraud.
Sure.
Your protection as a consumer, protection for the store, I mean, it's in there for a reason. He said that his wife was disabled and at home. And I was like, well, unfortunately, since she's on this order, she has to be the one. And it was an online order, so that means she made it. And our online order system has you put in if someone else is going to pick it up. So it's like, there's no wiggle room on online orders. There's a huge fraud capability there that it's extraordinary how much people get away with and cost my company millions of dollars each year for just being jerks. But this guy just wasn't having it. And like he goes on this huge tirade, and it ended up him blaming President Obama for our store's policy. And all I could do was just say, what? Like I was dumbfounded. And of course he walks out. And funny story though, he did come back later and apologize. This is like a few weeks later.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's rare.
Yeah.
It is very rare. It is very appreciated. Usually, though, I do forget that you ever did that, because if I remembered every time someone yelled at me, I probably would have shot up at school by now. That would be the just emotional toll. Like I said, I'm a human. I can only take so much negativity.
Right.
I mean, that's one of those things where I understand it's my job.
Right.
I understand that that's an aspect of it, just like the policeman understands that he may get shot at, and the firefighter may understands that if they go into a burning house, they may not come out of it. Customer service, I will get yelled at, but that emotional toll just builds up.
Right.
You either become an alcoholic or a psychotic,
Which
or
one
you
are
just quit.
Right.
And which one are you?
Not sure
the
yet. No comments.
The night is young.
Yeah, that beats out any of my stories. I can't say I've had anybody blame the president for. I've had people threaten me physically.
Yeah.
I've been threatened too, yeah.
But yeah.
Or threaten to sue the store, which
Oh,
is the worst thing you
that's-
could do
yeah.
ever. If you ever threaten legal action on a store, we are all told, stop talking to them, get them the heck out of the store. They have to contact legal now.
Yep.
Don't ever legally threaten a store. It is
Yeah.
the worst thing you can do.
Yep.
Nothing ever happens. Like it's well within your American right to go sue the store. I'm not saying you can't, but don't do it in the store. If you're expecting an outcome immediately.
Ain't that the truth?
I think one of my favorite stories that happened, and I think you were there, Francisco, when it happened. I'm going to guess, mid-20s girl came in wanting to return the Xbox game Skyrim.
Yes.
Oh, I know this story.
Yes.
So she comes in, this game is defective and I need a new one. Okay, that's awesome. It's defective. Tell me what it's doing. We want, because we want to ascertain where the defect is. Is it really with the game? Is it with maybe user error?
The system itself.
It could be the system itself. So she told us, she says, well, I've been playing this game, Skyrim. It's this role-playing game, and I'm supposed to do this quest. I follow this guy into this cave, and the marker above his head disappears. So I'm not sure where to go for the quest. Oh, well, you know what? We actually had a gaming guy right next to me, and we talked about it, and it's like, oh, that's a glitch. It's a problem coded into the game itself when it got ported into the Xbox, that it's just a problem. It's one of the glitches in the
You
game
just
that they
have to
haven't
save
fixed.
and restart, and it fixes itself.
Right.
It's one of those.
Well, she was not going to have it. She's like, no, it's a game. It is the game. Something's wrong with the game. Well, no, it's not. It's with the Xbox. Well, something's wrong. Do you realize how much time and work I put into this? I'm gonna have this fixed. I'm gonna have it fixed now. I mean, and she was in tears. And part of me is like, what is going on? Is this a hidden camera show?
Is this real life?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
But yet she went on, and she was there 15, 20 minutes talking about this. And in the end, she ended up bringing in the whole Xbox gaming system and exchanging it for a brand new one because she was sure that it was the system's fault now. So she got a new game and a new gaming system, and of course it did the same thing. You hear about nerd rage, that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and she was banging the counter and screaming, do you realize how much work? Okay, I'm a gamer. I get it. You put a lot of hours into things sometimes, and it frustrates you when
sure.
something happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember old school, the Nintendo, right? The original Nintendo, how it stored. Actually, the Super Nintendo too. It was on the game,
Mm-hmm.
If the battery died.
and if the battery died,
That's it.
you're out of luck. And I remember how frustrating that was. Super Mario 2, you're at the Bowser's castle and you say, you save it to go eat dinner and you come back and you got to start over. I mean, it's Russell, I get it.
Yeah.
But, I don't consider
the world still revolves.
It does.
There's a lot more to life than Skyrim.
Hey, man.
I know there's a lot, and it's called Second Life.
Yes.
Which I think is still around.
Elder Scrolls Online.
I remember that lady. And we laugh, and we have to laugh. And it's not making fun of consumers.
Right.
It's just...
We understand your frustrations,
Yeah.
for sure. Like, we get it. But, I mean, we are bound by certain things that we just can't control. Like, if the problem is in the game, we can exchange the game, but it's going to continue to do the same thing because it's on every game. So, I mean, work with us here.
Yeah, and and that's a really
we're not against you,
right? That's a really what you brought up there is a really good thing for people to remember, is that when you bring things up, we are trying to help you, and that sometimes what's wrong isn't the product. You didn't read the manual.
Yeah.
You don't understand what the product does. So there's this product out called Chromecast. A lot of people bought it thinking it's like a streaming media device.
Like a
Roku or
Apple TV.
Right. And they buy it, they plug it to get it home and can't get Netflix. And they can't figure out why. And now part of that is because when it was sold, the associate didn't explain it correctly.
Yeah.
That's sometimes the case. Or if they just grabbed it and went, But they get so frustrated because it just doesn't work. Well, hold on. We can tell you. I mean, do you have a computer that has, like a wide eye on it, and that you can send it, or do you have a phone and a tablet? Because then it will work just fine. And I think once we are able to calm them down enough to explain to them, hey, here's how it works. There's a lot of times where the problem goes away.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially on the Chromecast. I got one not too long ago. And I was doing research into it. Like, I want to know if I should get this thing, if it would be beneficial for what I do. And so I looked into it, and it was. So I went up and picked one up, and I tell you what, those directions that are included in the box could not be simpler. They make it to where like big numbers, icons. It's showing you this is the Chromecast. This is where you put it. Blah 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 blah. They walk you through the whole process. It's hard to understand why people would get frustrated because it tells you straight up exactly what you do and what you need to do.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same type of thing. So everyone knows the new Windows operating system came out, Windows 8, and about near universal reaction was it's god awful, which on first look it is. You actually have to use it. But we've had tons of people buy computers from our store and they want to return. It's like, I don't want Windows 8. I want a Windows 7 or XP.
Oh, man, dude. I remember when I was there, Windows 8 wasn't even out. It was still Windows 7. And they're like, no, I want Vista or I want XP.
And it's
like nobody wants the new Windows ever.
But the problem is, and the way computers work is when the new version comes out, we sell off the old version. We liquidate that. That stock is gone. And people don't understand that. And like they come in and they get mad when I say, well, I can return this, but any other computer you find out there besides a Mac is going to have Windows 8. And then they get upset. And it's like, I understand that you want something that's different, but you want to buy antiquated technology in the terms of computers. I mean, that's the same thing of people who go to electronic stores looking for the bulb for their projection televisions. That projection televisions haven't been sold in like what, 10 years? Like no one's going to carry those anymore. I know that back in the day, you would buy something from a store and they would have all the parts so you could repair it yourself. They've moved beyond that. They've moved to services. That's what makes them money, and especially the older generation just doesn't get that now.
Yeah,
and it causes friction, frustration.
I guess I get it. I can understand, both sides there where it would cause frustration for sure. But if I'm looking at, especially like older generations, they don't necessarily know how to use the internet to its full potential,
Sure.
or even want to know how to, So when things used to happen back when, the pre-internet days, you would go to a store and buy something like a replacement bulb, then that stopped happening
the
because
how-to guide to do it.
yeah. I mean, you would order it and then you would wait 3 to 5 weeks for it to come into the store and go pick it up or whatnot. But yeah, you just can't do that anymore. Like no stores are gonna do anything like that.
Especially not stores like Walmart, Target, the big box stores like that, because there's no profit in that.
Right.
In carrying
It's
the
not,
little pieces.
not only profit, but there's no room. you
Yeah.
know?
That's true. Yeah, because again, back to economics, but the stores are reducing their footprints. The stores are getting smaller.
Yeah.
They're trying to get more product in a smaller space, and there just isn't
relying
room to
more-
carry all the computer adapters,
Right.
power cords. There's
Right.
not room to carry all the light bulbs for projectors and TVs. There's not room to carry, every variety of every case.
Right.
That's why there's expanded assortments for most companies online.
Yeah.
Except
Especially for
gigantic
like
warehouse.
outdated,
Yeah,
technology.
exactly. Especially, yeah.
You got to go through a specialist for that stuff.
So, if you guys could think of what you would say to customers, like what is the top couple things that you would say to customers if they're upset and they're going to bring something in for a customer service issue, whether it's a return or just maybe they got bad service, they want to complain. What would you tell them? And say, hey, and fill in the blank. I mean, I know that's a really open-ended question.
Yeah, I would say do the 10-second rule. Take a deep breath for 10 seconds and like realign your emotion down to a more calmer level. Because if you come out guns blazing, I'm going to go right back at you because I don't get paid enough to take that type of verbal abuse. However, if you come to me, and I've had people do it where they were very upset about a situation and they came to me calm and said, look, this happened. I'm very upset. What can we do to rectify it? I will help you because I want you to come back into my store and buy more stuff. And remember that, hey, Francisco was a cool guy. I don't want to be the jerk.
Yep.
But if you start it, I'm that type of personality. I'm just going to feed it right back to you, and nothing's going to get accomplished. Guess what? I still get paid for fighting with you. So let's help me to help you. Jerry Maguire here. Help me to help you. Help me to help you. Because that's all I want. So keeping it down, realizing that the person in front of you does not symbolize the company as a whole.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's, I would say something like, listen, I'm here to help you. Yes, I work for the company, and I know things can get broken, but I am here to help you. I don't want you to be upset. I don't want to be upset. Don't blame me for something that happened, unless
we did break it.
Unless I physically did break it. Yeah,
Right.
don't. It wasn't our fault, so don't act like it was. If anything, be polite. Like if I will gauge and I could understand that you are upset with it, and I will do, what I can to help you. Don't, like Frankie said, don't come in guns blazing, because that's not going to help the situation at all. It's going to be worse, and you're going to leave even, unhappier.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the end of the day, guys, it's just not worth it. Like you got families at home, you got, friends, you got all these people to care about. Don't worry about, don't worry about it.
That's true. I mean, because I think here, I'm looking back, it seems like the majority of people that get really upset, it's over small dollar items. The people who buy big dollar items and have a problem, they're cool because they get it and they know. It's the people who come in and want to squabble over $8,
Right?
Or $30, whatever. But you spend $4,000 on a whole setup, and something goes wrong, you get it,
Right.
and So I find there's a little bit of irony there that the people who should be complaining most don't.
Yeah.
And the people who, usually the people who really get screwed over are really, they know they got screwed over and they're there to deal with us and allow us to work to fix it. Whereas the people who think they're entitled are the ones who have a $6 problem.
Don't ever say, one, you're going to do this.
Right.
That's not a.
That is a big pet peeve of mine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Or-
I will help you find a way.
Do you know who I am?
Or do
Do
you know?
you know who I am?
Or
Actually, I do because I have your driver's license in my hand.
or you don't stand behind your product. I hear that more often than not, and it's best, like the best thing you can do when you say that is realize my store didn't build it.
It's not my product.
It's not my product. It is Samsung or Vizio or whoever printed this music CD or whoever made this T-shirt or whoever printed this book. I didn't make it. I didn't go into the back and physically put it together. I don't have that high level of crafting skills.
Yeah, and if you knew
that
about
comes
it
at level
early,
6.
Skyrim.
if you knew about it early enough, don't put it off for months
Yeah,
on
that
end.
too.
That's the worst thing, you know, because
Procrastination is. Oh, I knew. Oh, it was broken months ago. Well, now you're outside of the warranty.
Yeah.
Well, it was broken months ago. Yeah, but now we're outside the warranty. Now we're
and
talking.
we can't tell that it was broken, you know, months
Yeah.
ago. It's, you know,
I think another important thing for people to understand is we don't have control over our systems. Our systems are set by people much smarter than us, or at least people who are paid much more than us. I don't know if they're smarter. People who are paid much more than us to set them up, and we can't change those. When they say, "Oh, well, just hit that button there and give me money back," well, I can't. You know, I
It's
can
not
mail
that
you a
easy.
check.
Not that easy.
You know, I think that's a good thing to remember. So be polite. The person behind the counter is really trying to help you. It's not their fault that something's wrong. Do your research. You know, don't procrastinate. Don't put things off to the last minute because when you do that, you kind of tie our hands as far as the customer service options go. So what, in your guys' opinion, makes someone who is a good customer? Like and this is in reference in reference to customer service. When someone comes up to you, what can they do that when they leave you're like, oh, that was a really good experience. I could see how it could have totally gone another way. It was a good experience and everything ended up the best it could.
If you walk up to me smiling, I'm gonna smile right back. You know, I'm gonna see that you are, you know, making an effort to you know, be polite.
Also, if you say I do an exception for you and you're extremely grateful, a lot of stores will have surveys at the bottom of their receipt to say, hey, how was
Right.
your experience? Fill that guy out. Or if you don't want to do that, before you leave, ask your manager and just say, hey, you know, Francisco really helped me out. Because if I get recognized for helping you, that not only makes me feel better because my manager comes by and say, hey, nice job, you know, high five. I feel like I did something good. And there's the possibility for bonus and things like that. I mean, just letting someone know that you had a good experience, not going home and just like, oh, sitting there doesn't do anything in the big picture.
Sure.
That's 30 seconds out of your time. That it's like a pass it on type of thing, you know.
That's good.
That always helps out. Or always saying the magic words. Thank you.
Those are words really hard to say sometimes, though, I think.
Yeah, kindness is key.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day.
What, in your opinion, flipping on the other side of the counter, what makes good customer service?
Just keeping it like head on a swivel, like.
Knowing that you will face obstacles through the day.
Yep.
That there will be most likely several people that come in pretty upset, that you can handle it, you know? Like, I would say customer service is probably the hardest job in that store because you're dealing with so much stuff. And it is, you know, Frankie made a point. It is very stressful and it could wear on you, you know, mentally. So having, you know, a stiff upper lip, knowing that you will face these obstacles, it helps out at the end of the day. And having good people working around you too, that you can, you know, share stories with and laugh and have all that stuff helps out a lot too.
Yep. always reminding yourself that one day down the road, it will be you on the opposite side of that counter. So
Yeah, you
you
definitely
know.
come out knowing a lot more than you did going in. Like
I'm a more patient person when it
Yeah,
comes to
for
customer
sure.
service type of things. When I get my car serviced or going out and returning something that I bought, like I am very. I'll wait in a line. I'll wait as long as however I need. I'll be polite to that person, say please and thank you, and if it comes back cash, if I have to take a store credit, well, it's my fault. I guess I'll just have to take the store credit and find something to buy it with. I mean,
yeah.
like, I'm a big proponent that everyone should at least work some sort of customer service job once in their lifetime. I think that would do this country a huge favor.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely gives you perspective for sure.
Yeah, it's
It'd be like the draft, but you won't get shot.
It's the new selective service in the United States of America. Everyone turns 18, and they have to work a year in customer service. Before you,
Man, that would change everything.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, I,
mean,
think it would.
as a
Or
society,
be like the purge.
it's really funny. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I mean, I think that it does. It gives, for those of us who've worked, even just retail, because all retail is technically a form of customer service. But just having that experience absolutely does give us a broader perspective on. I mean, I think it boils. It's human interaction, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean that's what it is. It's communication skills, which you can use. I mean, you go on. I mean, you're working in advertising now or in creative. I mean, you can use that stuff there. I mean, you have to deal with clients
Right.
who want something.
Yeah.
And who I've worked in advertising as well for doing like voiceovers and stuff. And so I've been given scripts and had clients critique and it is there's still that customer service rapport that you have to have with people.
Yeah.
So absolutely, that's a great point. It's useful in almost everyday life.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
It's just social skills.
Well, that is a show for another day. If they're social skills and common sense, those are two things that I think there's a finite amount of them to go around, and only so much can be in a certain place at a certain time.
I
We
absolutely
reach
agree.
critical mass.
Yeah. And then it just all dissipates.
So-
Or it creates a sun. Either way.
in the last couple minutes here, is there? I mean, I'm sure everyone has one experience, one customer, and so just briefly, what if you had that customer here in front of you? What would you tell them?
The bad customer or the good
Just-
customer?
That's up to you. Just one customer that sticks in your mind.
My general manager thinks you're creepy. Stop asking for them to come up every time you're in the store.
And shave your goatee.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Jeremy, what would you say to one customer if you had the chance?
I don't know. The one that really sticks out in my mind is probably the worst one that I dealt with, and this guy was just a pompous jerk and over nothing, and he had his friends with him, and it was just like almost like playing me for a chump, right? And I don't know. I'd look at him, I'd probably shake my head and just say, "Man, this just you could do so much more with, with what's out there." But like, stop being a jerk.
Yeah.
Just don't.
I think that's rule number one right there. When dealing with customer service agents, don't be a jerk. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for coming in tonight. I appreciate it. Everyone stay tuned at 8 o'clock from 8 to 10. There'll be First Cut Live. Other than that, we will see you all next week. Remember, be nice to customer service people. Don't make them mad. Be polite. Smile. Even shake their hands. You know what? Because as we heard tonight, they're people too, and they have feelings. So for all of us here at KTJO, have a great evening and good night.
All right.